Oh my God, Mike in South Carolina, no pronouns, is a theist. Hey Mike, you're saying atheism is imaginary. What you got for us? Holy shit.
Hey,
Okay.
how you guys doing? Sorry about that, secular rarity. I was going to say you got a lot of time to decide for Jesus, but it looks like maybe you don't.
Yeah, maybe not, right? Yeah.
All right, how about I talk and you just heal up and
Good call.
Unless anybody else wants to talk. All right.
I'm here.
The reason I called, I'm messing with you a little bit, but I think that song "Imagine" by John Lennon, that was played at Jimmy Carter's funeral. That's really an atheist anthem. I was wondering what your thoughts were on that. I can read it to you. I got it in front
How
of me.
so?
The lyrics.
How so?
Please
elaborate.
It's "Imagine there's no heaven." I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, it's okay. You we don't need to read out the lyrics online. There's a lot of themes in the song that are definitely, clearly kind of poking fun at religious concepts in general. I think, hey, maybe it's kind of atheistic, maybe it's kind of secular, whatever. I'm more interested, honestly, Mike, in the statement that atheism is imaginary. Is that something that you agree with?
Well, I was talking with the caller, and I just wanted to mess with the imagine thing. And he's like, "Do you believe in atheists?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I think atheism is not a position to hold. It's a position you hold until you figure it out." And that
Why?
is,
I mean, you're not wrong. It's not a position. It's a lack of holding a position. So you're not wrong.
Yeah. Why is that a problem?
yeah. Well, you guys talk a lot about somebody has burden of proof and this and that. When it comes to the big question in life is why are you here? And I believe that the answer is to decide whether or not you want a relationship with Jesus. And to be an atheist and say, "Gee, I don't know."
That's a big question for you. That's not the big question for me. I mean, Mike, I don't think you get to decide what's the biggest question in my life. You get to decide what's the biggest question in your life.
Yeah.
That doesn't even come close to maybe number.
Yeah. How did you come to that question as being the most important question? Like even what you said about like the biggest question being why are we here? Like that isn't the big question that I ask myself a lot of times. That isn't what's keeping me up at night. I've got other things I'm thinking about.
Really? Okay. Well, I mean, I care about stuff like what I'm going to do next week, my career.
I think, Mike, more important, I mean, why are we here? Mike, why are we here is an interesting question that I sometimes might think about. But to me, the more important question is, given that we are here, what do we do now? I think that's a much more, that's a much higher priority question than why are we here? Because the reason why that second question is higher priority is because we cannot change being here, right? So for one reason or another, we are here. And given that I have no control over being here, over that original decision, then I'm going to think about the things that I do have control over, which is what do we do now? So I think that's a better question than why are we here?
Yeah, I mean, they're related. They are. I mean, it's like, okay, why are we here? Well, we're here. That's why. Okay. Well, now what are we going to do with whatever time we have left? If we're not choking on a lemonade seed or whatever, we're going to have decades, probably, maybe. I don't know how old you are, but the question is, does it just end, or is there something else? And I'd say the burden of proof, my preposition, is that the burden of proof is on each one of us, not on somebody to come and convince you and try and show you Jesus or anything else. The burden of proof is on you to figure out, now that you're here,
does it make any sense?
What's going to happen when you're dead.
That doesn't make any sense, Mike.
It makes a lot of sense.
How is the burden of proof on me when it either is or is not the case that there's an afterlife? There's no burden of proof on me. If I'm unconvinced, if I just woke up yesterday After being in a coma since the day I was born, I still continued to grow. I still got older and everything, and woke up after, 30 years in a freaking coma. There would be no burden on me as to whether or not an afterlife does or does not exist. It just either is or isn't, man. Like, maybe there's a burden on me to like investigate it in some way or like actively try to learn stuff, like fine. But whether or not there is an afterlife has absolutely nothing to do with me or you or any other individual.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You said the burden of proof is to investigate it. That's the burden of proof.
Maybe again,
that's not the burden of proof. That's a different thing.
Yeah,
I think we're misusing the term burden of proof.
We are.
You could decide that maybe there's a burden on us to investigate as much as possible to come up with answers to different questions in life. But when we're using the term burden of proof, that is referring to something very specific. And this other new concept, this new burden that you are introducing to this conversation, that's an opinion that you have, that maybe we have to accept this burden. Somebody might disagree. Somebody will like, no, I'm cool. I don't see this. I don't want to accept this burden, right? But when we're talking about burden of proof, we're specifically talking about whether if somebody who hasn't made a claim doesn't have to prove anything because they simply haven't made a claim. That's a very obvious thing that's what's referring to, right? But you could say like, okay, but I think you should make a claim and then, or at least try to get to a claim. That's a different conversation that we could have. Like, is that what your position is? That, hey, like get into the ring, stop just saying, I'm not going to hold any position until something is shown to me. Actually go out and actually try to come up with answers. Is that what you're trying to say, Mike?
Wow, you're the man. That's exactly it. Yes.
Okay, good. And then once we go out, so I mean, I would like to encourage, I don't think like we should say that it's your duty to do so, but I like to encourage people to do so. Like there's a difference between saying that this is your responsibility or using another path of the thing, it would be good to do so. It might not be your responsibility, but it's highly recommended. I've done it and it's a good thing to do. And I say this based on experience. And it will just be good if we have a society where people are actively thinking about these things and trying to come up with answers, right? That would just be a better society, okay? And it's good to encourage it, right? Okay, so fine.
No, I don't care about, this is not about, go ahead. Go ahead.
You go ahead. No, correct me. I don't want to misrepresent you, so please correct me. What's your position?
Yeah, I don't want to open this up to society. This is a burden of proof, you, yourself, and I. It's just between yourself and your future. That's your burden of proof, is
but it's not
searching and seeing if you really know the truth.
Okay, I'm having an issue with the term burden because this is something, it's a choice, right? You could be like, I encourage you to do so,
it's an obligation,
but it's not required. It's an obligation?
Yes, and I'm reading the definition of burden of proof is the obligation to prove one's assertion. And I guess the assertion is the truth is out there, and it's up to each one of us to go and find it instead of sitting back saying, yeah, who knows? It's confusing.
Mike,
not that smart, or I don't care.
Mike, real quick. You're taking a concept that really applies to specific claims, and you're trying to apply it to generalized claims, right? So like, it's not that every person wakes up every morning, takes a big deep breath of fresh morning air and goes, the truth is out there. That's not really what's going on with people, right? Sure, we all seem to kind of desire truth in some way, but when you phrase it like this with the burden of proof to like go out and find, I think you're mixing concepts unnecessarily, like Armin was talking about, and it just muddies it up a little. We get what you're saying. We don't have to keep using this term that's not really, applicable.
Let me see how this is an obligation, Mike. Let me give you an example, okay? Imagine a woman, okay, that she's a kind person. She's very good to every people in her life. She has a job that is in a company that cleans the oceans, right? Like she works there and she's proud of her job. She's a scientist, like that's how she contributes to that company. She's she's a very good mother. Everybody that meets her thinks that she's a lovely person and a kind person, and she is a person that hasn't hurt anybody. And throughout her life, she basically contributed to, like, she came, she was born, she was a good person, people loved her, and she passed away, and she was just a net positive to her family, to the people she worked with, and society as a whole, right? And throughout her life, she didn't really bother about philosophical questions. She didn't think much about where she came from. She didn't think much about what would happen to us after we die. Did she fail in any way? Like, did she not meet her obligations based on your standard?
Yeah, it's an obligation to herself. That's what I'm saying. I'm not letting you off the hook by being agnostic or saying we just can't figure this out. I'm saying everybody should be searching for the truth always.
Can you answer my question? Can you answer my question regarding this lady? Like, what did she miss out on?
She missed something. Yeah. That's not even like a real person. That's like an AI robot you just described. Everybody thinks about this. Everybody.
Okay, so Mike, imagine like I just described to you So this is the problem with your way of looking at life, right? I just described to you a wholesome, a mother that took time spending time with her family, with her children, with her husband, a woman that was kind to every individual in her life, a woman that was a net positive to the world at large and made the world a better place. And you called her an NPC robot that's not even a person. So I think the way that you look at people and life is actually dangerous. Your philosophy, if you look at something so wholesome, and you don't even consider this person to be a real human being, you're calling them a robot. I think actually what you call an obligation sounds like a disease. Like, this is like very ugly way of looking at the universe. This is dangerous.
Again, you've got an imaginary person who never thinks about what they're going to be like when they're dead.
This is not an imaginary person. This is the life of so many people.
And millions of people.
This is the lives of most people.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks about it. Maybe you don't hear them talk.
Not as much.
They're thinking about it.
Maybe sometimes.
Everybody.
Not as much.
I do.
I don't.
How do you read minds?
It.
Okay, so now you have superpowers. Now you know what goes on in people's minds more than what studies shows and what people describe themselves. So now maybe you're Jesus.
Everybody thinks
if you are so confident about what goes on.
I don't understand what the purpose of this is at all, to be honest, Mike. And I'll tell you.
I think Mike is God because he's setting obligations on other people.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. But Mike, look. Here's what I want to do, okay? Because we've been going for like 13 minutes, and I don't think we've gone anywhere, in all honesty. If you think that absolutely everybody in the world, the entirety of their lives are having these thoughts, okay, man, like, think that. I don't give a shit anymore. What I'm interested in, though, Mike, is if you believe in a God and why you believe in that. That's what I am really interested in, not whether or not you think people go around thinking about X, Y, or Z. So let me ask directly.
Well, let's do a quick.
Do you believe in a God, Mike? Do you believe in a God of any kind?
I didn't used to, and now I do.
Why? What changed your mind? That, to me, is super duper fascinating, and I would love to hear that. What changed your mind?
I'll give you a couple bits, but I want to know from both of you. You've never thought about God or where you're going. Is that what you're saying? That this is unreasonable? That everybody wouldn't be.
I'm saying that the way that I'm saying the way that you have repeatedly characterized this the entire time. And it is super duper easy because here at the ACA, we record this shit for you. So just go watch it when we're done here. Go watch it back and then understand why I'm not even going to address that question, Mike, because it makes no sense for you to ask that question if you were actually paying attention and listening to what we were saying. So let's go on to this thing about whether or not, look, watch this, Mike. I know nobody else did, but I know you just heard a beep. You know why? Because I've done this before. And you're muted right now. This is stupid. Let's be adults. I feel like you're capable of doing that. So let's have this conversation that is of actual value to both of us. Because honestly, at the end of the day, I feel very confident, and I'm not going to ask you, but I feel very confident that you also don't really give a shit about that thing that you started talking about when you called in. So let's talk about something that you do care about, which is a massive, life-changing moment, Mike. You got saved at some point, and I want to understand what changed your mind. So there's going to be a beep. You probably heard it. And now you're back on, Mike. What changed your mind to make you go from a non-believer to now a believer?
Okay. But I appreciate you asking. And then I'm sure you'll answer the question I asked when I'm not online. So, barely. What made me a believer was science. I didn't want to be a believer. First, I determined that, through the universe had a beginning, which was really weird. Then DNA strands, how do you go from 14 to 15? You can't. There's just not enough time.
So let me jump in. Let me jump in for a second, because I think you've already given some good explanation here. Let me just make sure we're following along together. It sounds like what you're saying is there were scientific discoveries that you came across in your life that made you believe that a God must be the reason that those things are true. Am I understanding you correctly, Mike?
Yeah, it was a two-parter.
Cool.
First, the science made me think that something designed us. And then the second part was I went through all the religions, and only one of them had something where you decided to get married versus you trying to earn your way, and how many points do you have in the Islam system you were talking about. The other one was just let's just start instead of you.
Let's just take a look at the science for a second here. Mike, let's just take a look at the science for a second. I'm going to ask you a question that might be a little weird. Okay. Before those scientific discoveries, was anybody else in your eyes justified in believing in the God that you believe in?
I don't know if I've really thought about that. I guess before the scientific discoveries, I talked about DNA. Darwin didn't have DNA. But before that, they didn't know if the universe started, so they didn't have that advantage. All they had was the historical record of Jesus, which is very interesting. That's also very compelling. The coming back from the dead, everybody changed their attitudes when he came back. But
you already had all of that before you came to those scientific conclusions, right, Mike? You already had all of that. That stuff existed. So do you think those other people that didn't have those scientific conclusions, do you think they were justified in believing?
I think so, if you really dug into it. I just thought Christianity was a crutch. I really did. And I didn't want any part of it. Plus, I had to get through school, and I had to get a degree, and I just didn't have time for this. So
are you justified in believing?
At the very end of my education.
Mike, are you justified in believing your position now if those scientific discoveries were proven to your satisfaction to be incorrect? Your understanding of those things, if you found out today that those things weren't what you thought, would you still be justified in holding the position that you have now?
If what I thought was true was proved not to be true, then I wouldn't be justified. But
cool. So if they never had those to begin with, what does that mean for them? Are they justified or unjustified?
That means that
in your eyes, that's all I'm asking here.
The Jesus thing that I did. Yeah, no, I got dragged into it because of science. I did. I guess eventually I'd see the way people act, and life is just futile. That I would have come to it, I would think, at that point. But the science brought me to it faster.
So the science doesn't actually matter is what you're saying, it sounds like to me. Because it sounds like you're saying even without that information, you would still come to this conclusion. And you're saying that other people also in the same conclusion as you are justified despite the fact that they didn't have that information. So the science really doesn't matter, does it? Whether it's there or not, it doesn't seem to be holding anything up.
I think the science got my attention. It got my attention first.
Yeah, but without it, you would still believe. You just said that.
The resurrection, and that's very interesting.
Yeah, but you just said without it, you would still believe, and other people are still justified. How could they be justified if they don't have those scientific conclusions? That's what led you to this belief, you say.
Yeah, the science got me started, and then I learned so much more, and I was like, holy crap, looks like this was real as far as the resurrection and history being changed and our calendar being changed. Yeah. So, I mean, when I dug into it, I was like, oh, okay. Because I wanted to see if the resurrection was real when I was checking out all the religions.
I'm going to kick it over to you, Armin, because unfortunately, at a point in time, my head starts to bleed from smacking it against a wall. So,
no, I don't have much more to add except the fact that it was very interesting to me when I was talking, that when I said that many people who have full wholesome lives that they enjoyed and everyone else might have enjoyed, he said that person does not, like, that's not a real person. Like I think it takes a lot of arrogance to think that because I care about something, then the only way of being is for everyone else to equally care about this topic. I mean, and then then Mike said, do you guys not think about these things? Well, I personally do.
Yeah.
These questions, I personally spend a lot of time thinking about it, but I'm not arrogant enough to assume that just because I care about these questions, then that's the way to be. I recognize that a lot of other people might even find these topics. I know people. There are people in my life that I love that absolutely will roll their eyes as soon as I bring a topic like that, and they are having full, happy lives, and I would not want to change them. I would not go like, why are you not thinking about these things? They're doing fine. And I love them, and they love other people, and they're great people. Why would I think that everybody has to care about the things that I care about? Like, that's, I think, like, is not arrogant. I know some people that are so arrogant that say, like, oh, you're not intelligent enough to care about these things. But then you take it to another point that say they're not even human. They're just NPC AI robots if somebody doesn't care about these things. That is a level of arrogance that I haven't seen. But anyways.
And I think the method that you came to this
what's your favorite lemonade?
Hang on, Mike. I appreciate you.
This is special. The things I care about is so special.
Yeah. I appreciate you getting excited, Mike. But listen, just like Armin is pointing out, with that incredibly flawed understanding of life, in my opinion, I totally agree with him. I also think we've shown that your methodology for coming to the conclusion about whether or not this God is real is also very flawed. Because if you start out by saying it is because of X that I came to this conclusion, the only reasonable response to the question, if X wasn't there, would you be justified in that conclusion? The only reasonable response is no, never, 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 never. So take a look at that. And then just think about what Armin said, because honestly, I really think it is so sad to not only tell other people that your sundae has extra magical sprinkles, but to kick theirs onto the fucking floor and tells them that theirs is garbage without yours. That's sad, man. That's sad. So we're going to move on.
And also, SR, I was thinking, like, Jesus is supposedly is supposed to make you more capable of loving people, right? But imagine how miserable and how hateful your life would be if you look at other people and like, oh, you're not thinking about these things? You're not even a human being. Like, I mean, as an atheist who doesn't believe in Jesus, I think that I would be more capable of loving people if I look at them and I see that they don't care about these topics that I care about, and I'm still capable of loving them and appreciating them the way they are. And then you have Jesus and you're like, oh yeah, this is just an AI robot. Okay. So very love, like they say nothing.
No love like Christian love. Yeah, no love like Christian love.
There's no no. They say there's no hate.
Oh, there's no hate like Christian love. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Hate like Christian love. Yes.
Well, look, I appreciate you. Hey, next time, let's just call in and talk about why you believe in God, okay? I think we made more progress in the few minutes there than we did just, I don't know, weirdly talking about what you think people think about. So